Welcome back to another episode of The Underknown. Today I have the Florentenes as my guest. The Florentenes are an energetic four-piece out of Manchester, England that are hungry, they're developing a loyal following, and they're playing a lot of shows over there and making some really great music. Our conversation spans all kinds of topics, from being the coolest loser to gear to what it's like being so young and having to deal with this kind of success. They are young. We don't talk about it much in the interview. I think it's something that they probably don't love to talk about because they want to be judged on their music, not on their age. But they've already done a remarkable amount for a band so young. They are just 18 years old for three of them and 15 years old for the drummer. And they just keep on getting better and better the more that they write, the more they perform, and the more that they are out there. We're going to start off with a track from their latest EP called Homegrown. This is Misunderstands.
And so the doctor called and said I'm caught in a trap because your stubbornness has led me to the palm of your hand. I touch the palm of your hand, I don't make demands. I know that bygones will be bygones, oh, but I can't walk out. You made the whole world wait for you to open your mouth. So when you opened your mouth, did you let it all out? And did the boys come crawling to lend an arm out?
All right, we were just listening to Misunderstands off the Florentenes' latest EP, Homegrown, and now I'm here with all four of the bandmates. We have Will Smith, vocals and guitar, Luke Holding on guitar, Harry Stubbs on bass, and Liam Fitty on drums. Guys, welcome. Happy to have you guys here.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Let's start with that first song, Misunderstands. It's one of those songs that I could see becoming a summer anthem. You know, has the catchy vocal that everybody can sing, and I know that happens at your live shows. But it's going to be one of those songs that's so big that at the end of the summer, everybody's like, that's just what they remember from summer. And it's really catchy. I wanted to know how you guys came up with a song like that, because it's actually kind of different from some of your other tunes that I've listened to.
Well, I think it all came in one flow. Like, we didn't really think about it too much, which I think is what makes it quite catchy, is that it's very, very simple. As in, there's two chords and the chorus has 0 words. It's very, very easy to remember. And we didn't really have many songs like that until that one. And we still don't, but it just kind of happened. That song kind of happened very, very quickly. And I don't think we would have had it any other way, because we've not changed it much since then.
So what's the writing process like? Is it Luke that comes up with the chords, or Will, do you come up with the chords? How does a song like that come about?
Most of the time, I'll sit at home and write the structure and the chords and the lyrics myself, and then I'll come to rehearsal and I'll have any vague ideas I'll share, I think we should put this on the drums here, or Luke should play something like this, and then they're obviously the experts at those things, and they'll twist that and change it and offer me input, and then together from an idea that I've had at home, we'll build it into something greater with better parts.
And does most of this come together, most of the song come together while you're actually at practice playing in the room with each other, or do you bring it home and record things on different computers and bring them back for later? How does that creative process work when you're crafting a song after Will brings it in?
Everything is different. I actually find that the more you play the song together, I think for me, and I'm pretty sure for everyone else, there's little things that Liam might, decide a certain fill is better at a specific part of the song. There's little things that you always find. Yeah. And even if you've been playing a song for a year or 2 years, there's always going to be little things which you kind of have to wear into the song and get comfortable with it. I think that's really important before you go and record it in a studio or anything. Make sure you're comfortable with the song and make sure you're comfortable with all your parts.
So to that point about recording, when you guys go into the studio, and so far you guys have recorded 2 EPs and a single, and so you've put 9 songs down for posterity. Do you guys tend to play those songs out first before recording them? Is that the way you develop the structure and develop the feel and kind of know what you have and what you're working with before you go into the studio? You base it on some of the crowd reactions and things like that?
Always, yeah. I think it's if you don't test out the feelers of what's going to be a like crowd favorite and what's just going to fall flat and which parts are going to fall flat, you're never going to have a good idea, because I think also we've got a very skewed opinion of what we think is a good song compared to what the crowd thinks is a good song that we've got.
Have you brought songs to the band and they're like, that's garbage, you know, we're not doing that, or have they, you know, kind of maybe not so strong, and
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm not the only one that's bringing bad songs to the band. Luke's laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. But to be fair, I think like Luke and Liam are very nice with it. Harry's normally the one that brings something that's not good to the band. Harry's the only one that's like straight enough to tell me straight and be like, this is just not good, change it.
That's great.
Which I think you need that. You need that in a band.
Definitely.
That's Harry's role. Harry's the honest truths.
You might learn it live, but it is good to hear. Good to have that. So let's talk about each one of you and how you kind of started. So, Will, maybe you can talk about. I mean, you've been talking so far, but I'd like to hear, because I think that you're the person that, you know, from what I've read, you. I don't know if you started the band. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but you know, you kind of during COVID lockdown and all that kind of stuff, you really started to get serious about writing. So, how did all of you come together in a band, and how did you? How did you form? How did you know that you guys were going to be like a band?
I think that a lot of it came through like just necessity of wanting to do something different in school, because like Luke, like I went to high school with Luke and Harry, and Luke had been playing guitar for a long time before me or Harry picked up anything. And then lockdown happened, and I'd been playing piano for maybe a year or something, and I got into playing guitar and other things. And I slowly started to like playing with Luke and like sending each other things, like videos of like song ideas through lockdown. And then we needed a bass player, so Harry came in after lockdown ended. We started rehearsing together, and we all started getting tighter. And then from there, we played about a year and a half with no drummer, and Liam just a miracle showed up one day, and we played our first gig a month later, and we've been going like that since.
So is Liam from a different school than you guys? I mean, Liam, how did you even find these guys, Liam?
Yeah, well, I'm from a different part of Bolton to them. So there was this like charity that put bands together called Rocket, and I joined that, and they were already in it looking for a drummer. Yeah. So I joined it, and they put me with them, and I've stuck since. But it was really daunting because they have like mentors, you know, like older musicians, and the guy on drums, he's mental, like he's just a mental drummer. He's so good, and this guy walked into the room and he's doing like all these crazy fills and stuff. I was like, how am I going to fill that gap? But you know, I've set into the band, and I feel like I'm pretty comfortable now.
So you are the youngest one, and you're a few years younger. Is it like you're the little brother of the band, or have you fit in more like a friend? Do they pick on you a lot? I mean, what happens there?
I mean, I feel like they don't look at me too much like I'm that much younger, to be fair. Coming from them, sometimes they kind of forget I'm younger. I feel like being with these lot, I feel like I've matured a bit faster than a lot of other people my age.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I'm more of a friend than a little brother.
So how did you start drums? I mean, how old were you? Was it, going back to your childhood? What brought you to drums? I mean, it's not the easiest instrument to get started in. There's a whole kit involved. There's noise. Yeah. It's like there's no melody. It drives people crazy. How'd you get involved in that?
Yeah. Well, like my parents had always been into like 80s music, so I'd always been brought up on like all that like Queen and everything. I was like listening to that, and then one day, I was about 6 or 7. This kid in my class started taking drum lessons, and like he got to miss like an entire lesson in primary school, and I was like, "Where's he going? I want to do that." So I started drumming, and then I ended up really, So I ended up really liking it, and I kept with it, and I've just loved it since. Really, it's like it's become a passion.
So can you read music and all that kind of stuff? Because you started like at that age where they're kind of trying to teach you like left hand, right hand, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can read drum music. I can't read normal music very well.
Yeah. There's no real reason to.
I'm trying to learn normal music from GCSEs, but I feel like that's not going to go too well.
And then Luke, you Will mentioned that you were the guitar player that actually knew how to play when he started playing with you. How did you get to learn how to play? Like, what was your background?
Well, it's very similar to Liam's. It was kind of when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Someone came into school and said, like, we're starting doing guitar lessons, so come along. And I went to it, and then I was like, this is great. I get out of lessons. So then I kept doing it. And then I got my first electric guitar when I was about 11, and that's when it kind of became like a passion of mine. Yeah. And I really kind of found an interest in it.
So you were it was all acoustic guitar, like nylon string or steel string?
Like mostly nylon string. And I didn't really like it until I started playing like electric.
So you really just did it to get out of school, and it wasn't a love of yours until you got to make some real noise with an electric?
Oh, no. Yeah, completely. I think partly was because like I was never taught songs that I actually wanted to play. Like it was always like, you need to play this, like, like
Twinkle Twinkle
Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah,
right. And so what were they teaching? Like finger style, or were you using a pick? What were you doing?
I was using a pick, but it was probably stuff that should have been like finger style.
And do you know how to read music and everything?
Not really.
Yeah.
I can read tabs, and that's about as far as my knowledge goes.
Yeah. And then Harry, I think I read Will say in one that in school you were the cool kid or something like that. You were one of the cool kids. Is that true, Will? Is that actually what you said?
No, that's an exaggeration of what I said, probably.
Okay, all right. So I was going to say the bass player is never the cool kid. So I mean, how you came up with the bass?
No, in school we were like complete losers, but I was right at the bottom. Yeah, take that how you will.
The coolest loser.
Yeah, coolest loser. Yeah.
That makes more sense. All right.
And I was the least cool loser.
Yeah, Luke was. It was like if you got a scale, Harry's coolest loser, Luke's least loser, and all our other friends kind of lay in the middle.
Okay. And so, Harry, how did you come to bass? I mean, bass is like one of the least like I think pursued instruments that I know of, just because it's like again, it's not particularly like the cool instrument to play, and you're holding it down. It's cool once you're into it, but like not to get into it.
No, you're completely right. But I don't know. It just so happened that some of like my biggest inspiration just happened to play bass. Like people that were my biggest inspirations that played bass were also like super proficient with music theory. Just really like clued in musicians who were just really good musicians, not just bass players. So I don't know. I do look at like some bands now, and I can see like if I'd grown up on different music, I would have never liked bass, because some bass players, they're just boring. But it just so happened that the ones that I did see were the only ones and they were really cool. So it's just.
Well, like who for example?
Cliff Burton, yeah, Metallica, yeah.
Okay. So one of the guy that played bass in the band that I was in was actually an amazing guitar player. He's a better guitar player than I am, and I was the guitar player in my band. And I always joke with him. I was like, "How's it feel to be the bass player in the band that you're the best guitar player?" And it's like, but it brings you something a little different in terms of like bringing that melody, like you said. Like you're not just plodding along with the root chord because you don't know how to do anything else. And if you're influenced by more melodic bass lines, I think that's probably pretty helpful as well.
100%. You nailed it there. Completely right. Yeah.
And then, Will, you mentioned that you started playing with Luke a little bit. And so what was your, how did you pick up the guitar? You mentioned you were playing piano a little bit, but like what made you pick up guitar? Was it to write, or is it because Luke needed someone to play rhythm so he could practice lead? I mean, why did you pick up guitar?
I picked up a bass first.
Oh, wow.
Just plodding along on root notes. And yeah, I would play piano. Piano's like always been like my main thing, but I wanted to play something a little bit cooler than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought bass was cooler than that. And then me and Luke tried to start a band up. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to be a bass player in this band. There's absolutely no way. So I wanted to try rhythm guitar, even though I knew I wasn't good at it.
Mm-hmm.
We was in a 5-piece band, and I was a rhythm guitarist, and Luke was a lead guitarist. And that's how that
So
happened.
there was a band before Florentenes that you guys both joined, or?
Yeah, we joined another band before that, but it didn't last very long. We just did a couple jam sessions together and things.
Were you the singer in that band too?
No, I was just the rhythm guitarist.
Okay.
It was only after that band dissolved that I became the singer. Out of
Did you do
necessity again.
any backups or anything like that in that band, or you were just strictly rhythm guitar?
Just rhythm guitar, just sitting along being rhythm guitar, thinking I was cooler than I was, basically.
Just trying to peck up, call out that pecking order of coolness. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty much every boy's
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're always just trying to get cooler and cooler.
Exactly,
And, what better way to do it than to get in a band that starts to play festivals? So you guys definitely achieved that. What made you think you could sing? It's a pretty ballsy move, right? I mean, you're singing. It's like you're out there.
Arrogance, probably.
Yeah. It's probably very true.
It was also out of necessity, I think, because originally me and Luke shared the lead vocals, but on the songs that I would play lead guitar on and he would sing, I was just so dreadful at lead guitar that I just had to sing. I had to take over that responsibility and let Luke shred, because the other songs were just so not good with me playing lead guitar. It had to go that way. There was no other way it could have gone.
Well, you have a pretty unique voice, which is cool. It's like, it's one of those voices where, you listen to it and you're almost worried that you're going to burn out your voice, because it's so kind of gravelly and aggressive, but it's a great voice. You do have a really good voice. It's really unique, and it fits that style of music that you guys are doing. It kind of makes you guys have that sound, and it's not just the voice, it's the rest of you guys too that form that. So I think that's really good. But is that just the way that you sang from the get-go, or how'd that?
Yeah, I think I do naturally have a rougher voice, because I'm not putting it on. It's not like a rock and roll Axl Rose thing that I'm trying to put on. It's my real voice. And if I can do a full set without it burning out afterwards or anything.
Yeah.
I just think my biggest inspiration is John Lennon, and there's a lot of Motown singers that have that gravelly voice, that I'm obviously never going to be able to achieve that. So I guess it's my best impression of trying to do a John Lennon mix with Otis Redding, Bob Dylan kind of thing, and just from there.
Well, I can hear a little bit of the older influences in some of your music. I mean, I think is it Glue or Gone? I can't remember which one it is that kind of has that kind of an older feel to the beginning, and then also I think Fuel for the Flame has a little bit, or no, What It Takes Two has a bit of an older feel to it. So you guys have a bit of this aggressiveness too, but you also break into some really nice harmonies. And I guess that you couldn't give up singing altogether, so you decided to do the harmonies. But the harmonies are really good when you guys use them. You don't use them, a whole ton, I don't think. But when you do, they're super effective. They're really good.
Thank you. I needed to keep some spotlight. That's why I kept doing them.
Well, it works. And the other thing that I noticed, you guys came into contact with this producer, Dave Aringa. Is that how you say his last name, Dave Aringa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been working with him for the last 2 EPs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your sound is, as you mentioned, it's kind of cultivated from your live sets, and we'll talk a little bit about how you go through, creating a set and getting rid of songs on it. But it sounds very full, very energetic, very like it's almost like it's not a live recording, obviously, because it's much more polished, but it has the energy of a live recording, and that's not easy to do. So, did you choose him or did he choose you, and how did that relationship come together?
It was kind of 50-50. I think it was like his manager like recommended him, and he was really keen to work with us, and we didn't have much experience working in studios, so he kind of snatched his hand off, and he's become a bit of a mentor to us and taught us a lot about how to become a better band.
I bet, yeah.
So it's kind of
You
that
got
process.
You guys also do a lot with stereo in there, which I've noticed a ton because sometimes when I listen to the bands I'm going to interview, I have headphones in, and it's just like, especially with the guitar, it's like dun, dun, dun. You guys do this really play off each other, but you didn't do it for stereo. I imagine it's because that's the way that you played. And Dave was like, let's do that, panning it back and forth, and you do it live too. You can see it. So how did that playing off of each other start for you guys? Is it just something that evolved, or what happened?
Well, we got a couple like unreleased songs which do it as well, but it's Block Party. It's like a block. It's very much inspired by that kind of thing, or like I think when we first started doing them, probably like an early Arctic Monkeys thing, but mostly like Block Party, where a lot of the guitar is revolved around that bouncing back and forth. Like one guitar's in one ear and then it bounces to the other ear. And Dave's just intelligent enough to pick up on that and make it work really well in a studio.
It's really cool. So when you guys write that kind of stuff, how does it like? I can't imagine. Well, if you write a song, take The Gun or something like that. If you write a song, you're not like you don't bring it in and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and it's like dun dun dun. Like it's that has to evolve somewhere, or does it? How do you do that?
The idea of The Gun revolves around that bouncing guitar riff. So I did for that.
Okay.
I did come to like Luke and say, okay, you're going to play this, I'm going to play this, and then you're going to play this. And then like the breakdown in the middle, because it all kind of builds on that breakdown in the middle where the drums build up. That's the first thing which I think of, but I just do it as like single notes on my guitar, and then it builds and builds and builds. And then I was thinking, okay, we can do like a back and forth thing and it'll sound really cool. And they just, obviously, Luke, Liam and Harry just polish that up and make it a real song rather than an idea.
And when you guys do a song like that, so you mentioned the drums in the middle, and then it goes into a guitar solo, and that's not, first of all, correct me, that song doesn't seem to have a verse and a chorus. It seems to be a song, right? It's a song, and then you have this breakdown or bridge or whatever you want to call it, and a guitar solo, which is not normal for music today. It's not that's not normal. You don't hear a lot of bands doing that. It was really interesting to me, the structure of the song. So is that something that you brought to them, Will, or is it something that evolved? And then, Luke has a few different guitar solos and things like that, but it's really cool that you guys are doing some of that, like maybe more old school type of stuff in your music too.
Well, the great thing about doing like big, great guitar solos or big, great drum breaks is that I don't have to write very many lyrics. So when if I'm feeling lazy, then I can just say, all right, everyone with the actual technical ability to do something really cool here, do it. And it saves me a job, and I can just sit at the back and play chords and try and look cool. Goes back to trying to look cool.
Everything goes back to trying to look cool.
Exactly. But yeah.
And when you guys are on stage too, you do a lot of interacting with each other, it seems as well. So, you guys have developed a live show that it seems like you're pretty comfortable on stage. I don't know how many shows you guys have played. I imagine it's quite a few, but given that you didn't start playing until after COVID, and then you had to I imagine you started playing out like in earnest in 2023. It's only been a couple of years, and it's not like you guys play 6 nights a week, right? So I mean, how did you guys get comfortable on stage relatively quickly, and also meet the moment for some of those big shows that you guys have played some really big shows already?
I think probably it probably largely has something to do with the fact that a lot of those shows was just like thrown into. So then you're like, we'd get on stage after playing to like 100 people one week, and then
Right.
you walk out like a set of doors, and then be 2,000 people, silent, completely silent, just looking at you, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? And like, no one's gonna be there and hold your hand and be like, right, well, now this is when you introduce the audience. We just had to do it, so we've thrown into like a load of scenarios like that where it's just like all these people looking at you horrified, looking to say, who are these lot? And you just had to try and impress them. With like, whereas I feel like a lot of bands do what you said, that like 6 nights a week thing. It's kind of difficult in your school to do that.
Yeah, totally.
So for us, it's like 1 or 2 big gigs every other week, whatever, which we just had to get used to really quickly, or else we'd just look like a bad band compared to the others on the bill. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, playing live isn't something that just, I mean, you do, there's a lot to learn when you play live versus when you play in your own studio versus when you play in a recording studio. And to do that, you guys have, it seems like you guys have been pretty quick studies about all this. I mean, writing music, recording music and playing live. It seems like, that's probably part of your early success. I mean, you guys have already been pretty successful for only being around for a couple of years. What is like, what's next for the summer for you guys? It didn't look like you guys had a ton on your website at this point, but I imagine there's going to be a lot more that's going to get filled in there for the rest of the summer.
Well, I think we a couple of days ago we probably just did our biggest gig that we've had like ready for. So that's one thing out of the way. That was Neighborhood Weekender. That was one thing out of the way. We've got a couple of festivals, but I think we're going into a period now of writing a lot of music and trying to record it as well, because I think through the winter time we did a lot of gigging than we were used to, and now that's over with. We'll probably pick up gigs here and there, but I think now that that's over with, we're going to try and write some stuff again, because we've not had that chance over that winter period, and record stuff, hopefully get back in the studio and do something then.
So the songs off your new EP, Homegrown, I mean, how old are those songs for you guys? I mean, how long have you guys been playing them and working on them and refining them?
Well, when we was saying before, when Will said a whole lead guitar thing, saying that he was so rubbish to play it. So what it take, Will played lead guitar on that and Luke sung it. But then there just came a point in the band where it was like, guys, why don't we just switch roles? Like, so much smarter. So they did that, and then
the song got better.
Yeah. What it takes became what it is now. It's not the same for Fuel for the Flame, but that song is around a similar period of time, which is like nearly 3 years ago, maybe a bit less, but somewhere around there. And then the other two a little bit newer, more like last year. So,
yeah.
So that's roughly the time.
And then you guys have a few other songs that you don't that you play out that haven't been recorded that I was able to find. I mean, I think "Step in the Right Direction," "Scarecrows." It was hard to find some of these things out there, but how long is a Florentine set? I mean, how many songs do you guys have on there? I mean, 9 seems like plenty for probably one of the sets that you guys are able to do in like a half hour, right? I mean,
I'm impressed that you found Scarecrow, because we played that 2 times total ever. That's like one of the newer ones. A Step in the Right Direction is a bit older, but I mean, someone came up to us actually when we did Neighborhood Weekend the other day, and he came up to me and he went, "You've got a 25-minute set, right? Are you sure you're going to be able to fit 8 songs on that?" And I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. We don't really have many songs that are over like 4 minutes, and if they do, then it's probably boring. or really good. So yeah, we can in a half an hour set. I think we could probably fit about 9 in, and then with a 45, God knows, probably like
We do like 12, don't we?
12,
12,
12 13 maybe at a push, something like that.
Have you guys covered anything?
Ooh,
Not recently.
not recently, no. Nothing good.
I read a
I
couple on
think, like-
Instagram not long ago.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we did.
What was it?
Coldplay.
Oh, really?
We covered Just by Radiohead, and we
Oh,
covered
yeah.
Coldplay,
Oh, that's good. Okay.
and that
We've
was
done like stuff like Reptilia by The Strokes in the past,
okay.
but not for a very long time, and it did not go well.
Oh, really? It's interesting. You know, I could see you guys like doing a cover, but not really covering it. You know what I mean? Like, you cover it, but you're turning it into a Florentine song, which is technically a cover, but you're not, because you don't sound like. I can't. Will, your voice is not a Radiohead voice per se, right? I mean, you don't sound like Tom York, and but if you covered something and you did it in your way, and like you take something slow and maybe make it a little faster or something like that, that might be a really interesting thing to do. But I was just wondering if you guys had pursued too much, many covers to fill out your set a little bit or get the crowd going. But I think your music's pretty lively. You probably don't even need to do that.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about lyrics if we can. Will, you mentioned a second ago that your lyrics, sometimes you feel lazy and you don't want to fill it out, so you put in like a drum fill and a bass, a bass part and a guitar solo. But you deal with some pretty, I don't want to say heavy topics, but there's definitely a bit of angst in your voice, in your vocals, in your songwriting. So talk about like how you approach your lyrics.
I think that I don't like people always say that they struggle to find something to like write about, but I think a lot of our best songs are kind of written about nothing. I don't think you necessarily need a subject to write about. Obviously, some songs, if you've got something that's heavy on your mind, then that's good to write about. But I don't think that you need a subject to write a song about. I think as long as you come up with something that rolls off the tongue nice or is like easy on the ear, then you've got good lyrics. I don't think they necessarily need to mean anything. I mean, it goes back to John Lennon. John Lennon's like one of the most famous examples of writing lyrics that mean nothing but still creating an amazing song. And I think a lot of the time I want to achieve something like that if I've just got an empty head, which I do most of the time.
Take your claim to fame.
Yeah.
What I think that's an interesting point, because a lot of times people will say, well, what's that song about? Like, tell me the deep meaning behind that song, because a lot of times when you listen to lyrics or you read lyrics, you draw your own inferences about what the song is about, right? I mean, I bring it back to, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, when we would, in grade school, we would be, you read Lord of the Flies, for example, and it's like, okay, what's the conch shell represent? And you're like, I don't know, it's a shell, they're blowing it. But there are all these hidden meanings behind it. But for lyrics, I always kind of think it's best if the audience or your listener is able to relate it to something themselves. Like you might mean, I was talking to a woman the other day who, she had the song that was about, it was very much about being a woman, but I was able to take it about being about my daughter. You know what I mean? And so for me, like I completely adapted that song to something in my life, and that makes it meaningful. It's much more meaningful if I can take your lyrics, relate them to something about me, than trying to relate to you in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I actually think that's a perspective like that is actually easier as well, because although a lot of our songs like do have no meaning, there are actually more to count when I think about it that have like quite a close meaning to me that I might not necessarily want to share with people. So even if they'll come and be like, oh, I love this song, I love these lyrics, and they find their own interpretation of that, even if it's dead wrong, I much appreciate that more than having to like open my heart and express whatever has been on my mind.
I get that, and I think that it's because it's personal to you. You know, you sing it with a certain passion, but that passion comes out and is received by the listener, which is applied to their own life, and I think it makes it more personal to them. Like, if I'm, you know, if you're singing a song and then all of a sudden you tell me it's about like, you know, catching, you know, fish in a stream, I'm like, what? How is that what it's about? That's ridiculous. And it changes my perspective of the song.
Kind of ruins it.
Yeah, it kind of ruins it, right? Like I don't want it to be about that. I want it to be about, you know, about fishing for life. Or I mean, fishing is a stupid example. I don't even know why I'm bringing
No,
up
I
fishing,
get what you mean completely.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, it ruins it. Kind of ruins it.
It does ruin it to me. You know, so I kind of like, you know, I mean, the lyrics in your songs, I can see some of the places where they don't seem to go, like where maybe I can't figure out what they mean or something like that, but they're still good lyrics. And like you said, they roll off the tongue. They're like easy and to say in a verse or a chorus or wherever they might fit. And that's really, you know, almost just as important as what they mean is how they feel when you say them.
Definitely.
You guys have, like we mentioned, 2 EPs. 1417 was your first one, and then Homegrown, which is this new one. How do you feel that those 2 EPs are different? And maybe Liam, you've been awful quiet, and I promised that you wouldn't be able to be quiet the whole time. So Liam, how do you feel that those 2 EPs are a little bit different from each other? Like what was the growth of the band in between those two? And I know there's only a year difference, but what changed, if anything?
I would say experience and a bit of maturity with like writing songs and everything. But then again, some songs on Homegrown were written before some songs on 1417. So I think we just, like, as well as maturing, we wanted songs to fit the vibe we wanted. So I'd say like 1417, it's more like, I would say for me, it's more trying to like show people what we've got so far, and then Homegrown is like now showing what we can come to, and like you know, stuff I'm personally more proud of, because I like the songs in Homegrown more than 1417. I think they're a lot cooler. So I'd say it's about progression and about, you know, little changes in the band and stuff like that.
Do all of you guys feel like that in terms of like, you know, the songs on Homegrown are better than the songs on 1417? And I'm not saying like the ones on 1417 you think they're bad and the new ones are good, nothing like that. But do you guys think that there's been a growth in your music writing and the way that you recorded it and the way that you approached them between the 2 albums?
I think it's hard to say, to be honest, like some of them, because I know that me and Will think Did You Ever is a lot better than most of the songs we have. Even though it's a song of ours that's like probably the most overlooked one, like least streamed or whatever. But like you said, I don't think any of us think any of them are bad. But some of the older ones, we do think like we can tell that they were written when we were younger, as opposed to the newer ones being written, sort of thing.
I think that's important. You know, you guys are, I mean, you're, you know, said we weren't going to talk too much about age, but you guys are young and so you're growing. And if you're not growing at your age, I mean, that's like, you know, as musicians and as artists, then like kind of what's the point? And I kind of feel like there's nothing really worse than a band that has, you know, this one, you know, the one hit wonders. I mean, like, you know, you have this one song that kind of comes out and it's good, but you don't really progress from there. And I do think that, you know, personally, I like the songs on Homegrown a bit better than the 1417. I think the songs on 1417 are really good, but there's just there's a new energy, or not a new energy. There's a little bit more of an energy to me on Homegrown. And I didn't know if it's because of the way that you guys had more experience playing live and you were able to translate that into the EP better. But I think there is growth there, and I think that you guys are mentioning that you're going to start writing again, or you probably have been writing, but you know you're going to start putting a little more effort into writing right now as opposed to touring. And hopefully we continue to see that growth out of you guys.
Yeah.
Could we talk gear a little bit? I haven't
Yeah.
talked gear with anyone, and
This is my time.
Yeah, this is your time, Luke. So you guys have, I know I'm a guitar player. And so for me, no matter what I play through, I sound like me. Right. And I feel like that's probably the same for you, Luke, and probably for you too, William, but there's still a choice that you make when you choose your gear. So Luke, how do how is your sound evolving? How are you kind of, what are you choosing to like, tell me about how you get your sound.
Well, I mean, it's evolving because I keep buying gear that I don't need.
Exactly. Yeah,
but
the guitar player syndrome.
I mean, my main thing is at the moment is like I primarily play through humbuckers on the bridge pickup, and I kind of want a lot of the time I want quite a thick distorted tone, like I think that cuts through live better than anything. So like Fender, Vox amps, stuff like that.
I thought I was hearing some Vox amps in there, but it always looked like you're playing a Fender. But
yeah, well, since last time we were in the studio, I bought a Fender amp.
Okay.
So, but before that, it was Vox.
Yeah. And then what about effects? I mean, you guys you definitely have some delays and stuff, like you said, like some of the distortions. Or is it all amp distortion? Or are you playing with fuzzes? What's going on?
It's pretty much all pedals. I kind of always have my amp on a completely clean tone. And then I have like a blues driver, and I have a couple of distortions and different fuzzes. And then a couple of cool delays as well.
You always changing them around, or you kind of have one pedal board that's been the same for a while, or?
I have one pedal, but I have all my pedals on that pedal board, so it's quite like a big heavy thing to carry around. But like I use them all in a set, like every pedal gets its time to kind of shine.
Well, let me ask you this: when you're writing your parts for these songs, whether it's the rhythm part or the lead part or whatever, are you kind of like thinking about what effects you're going to put on, like how you can make that song kind of come alive and just like really fiddling with those effects for a little while, or what's your like process there?
I mean, I think like when I first hear a song or like a part of a song, I kind of get a vibe for it. And then normally I probably put my effects on before I write the part, and then I kind of write the part based off the effects. Like if I have reverb or delay, then I'll do kind of more of a droney kind of ambient thing. And then if I have a really dry signal with a fuzz, I'll do like big kind of octaves or whatever. It's like I think I hear something in my head before I actually play the guitar.
Are your pedals, are there a lot of like different programs in your pedals? Can you go from like, if you have a delay, is it like, you mentioned some of the Boss delays and stuff like that, they just have like one setting, you put it on and put it off. Do you have ones with like multiple settings so you can change your settings for different songs, or is it just like kind of one?
It's just they're all just one. They all just do one thing. I've got like I've got a multi effects, but I only use the chorus on it, and that's the only one that does more than one thing.
Cool. And then Harry, what about you? I mean, I know you have a pretty cool looking Rickenbacker bass. That's a pretty nice bass. What do you play through? What do you use? How do you get your sound?
Well, I don't have my Rickenbacker because Liam has it at the moment. Played a gig, gave it to. I do actually. It's funny you say that. I do actually have one of my guitars next to me. This is my other guitar, which is an Aria, 70s.
Nice. Okay.
So this is my other bass. So quite like weird choices really for bass, because I did have a Fender, but I wasn't a fan. So I went with two weird choices, and then I really hate, like, this is ironic, but I really hate like really high trebly bass tones, and I've been trying, like the past few recordings, I've been getting quite a lot of them. So I've been trying to steer away from that as much as I can. So I got an Ashdown. Which are like they take away a lot of the treble and give more of like a boosted sort of,
lower.
I use a lot of fuzz and distortion. Like we played a festival neighborhood, and the sound guy was like, he was like, bass player. He was like, are you sure that's going to be a tone for most of the songs? And I was like, yeah, that's definitely my tone. Yeah, I use stuff that's like a bit thicker. Just fills the bass a bit. Like I said, I'm not a fan of the high trebly sound, so I play with my fingers. I don't use it ever really. And I use basses that, even though Rickenbacker are known for like being trebly, they're very like high output, aggressive sounding as well. So you can get quite a thick tone out of them. That sort of like thick sound I go for a lot.
It fills out the sound live. It definitely fills out.
Well, you guys don't have a lot of instruments, right? I mean, William, I know that sometimes you don't play like you're singing. I mean, sometimes singing and playing can be hard. So Luke, you're kind of picking it up, and with a 3-piece band, I mean, Liam, you got to do some fills and like kind of fill in the space. But Harry, I mean, it's really interesting that you're saying that you use some fuzzes and things, because that's not typical for bass players. Do you listen to Bootsy Collins at all?
No.
Okay, so he's a funk player with a band called Funkadelic, P-Funk, George Clinton, old school guy that he's got this cave. I mean, he's been on everything. He's I think you might like him because he experiments a ton with different effects and different, like he'll use like a fuzz wah, and he uses all kinds of stuff on there. It's totally different music, but kind of the same philosophy where he's treating the bass like it's an instrument, right? I mean, it's not. You're not just filling space, you're doing something interesting with it. And why are guitarists the only ones that use effects, right? Why can't the bass player use effects on there and make something cool?
100%. Yeah, I use a lot of effects.
That's awesome.
And in the studio as well, especially. Lots of cool things you can do in a studio. Loads of fun to be had with that. Yeah,
definitely. And Liam, you're just a drummer, so I'm not going to talk to you too much about this. But what I'm going to say to you, what I think is interesting, is not every time, a bunch of times I see you have a different drum head on your bass drum with a different like cymbal, or like how do you? Does it matter what the drum head is? I mean, why do you change? Is it just changing it for a different aesthetic? I mean, why do you change the?
No, it's normally because when we're supporting, you can't always fit all the kits on the stage. So sometimes I have to use the house kit or like the other supports kit. It's not as mine's normally just our logo.
I had no idea. That's awesome. So you're just jumping on a kit. That's pretty that's really. How's that affect you? I mean, is that like do you care that much? I mean, I know you care about the sound, but I mean, how does that affect you as a drummer to play something that like this? I mean, maybe you bring your own snare drum, but the toms aren't tuned right, or the bass is kind of flubby. Like, how does that affect like the way that you play?
Yeah, you kind of just have to put up with it, really. Like, I mean, some people have some goofy setups, and you kind of just have to ask them nicely. Is it right if I just change the height of this or like the angle of this? Yeah. So, but like, they normally sound, and like you tend to have really nice people, and like, oh yeah, just do it. I'll change it after. So it's normally fine, really.
Okay. Cool. And do you have any preference with the way that like somebody mics up your drum kit or anything like that? I mean, is there or do you just let the sound guys take care of that?
Yeah, the sound guys probably know what they're doing better than I know about mics, so I'll just leave it to them.
One of the interesting things about the drums is I do feel like, as good as the rest of the music is, if you don't have good drums that kind of hold it down, like if you don't have a good drum sound, it can really mess with the whole vibe of the setup. Like, so, on, one of the albums that my old band recorded, we did it with a guy from Aerosmith, and he was not the engineer of Aerosmith. He was actually, he portrayed himself that way, but he had a home studio. And the home studio was in a basement, and we put these drums next to this like washer and dryer in the basement, right? And our drummer had this great drum set, but they sounded like crap in that space. The space just sounded like crap, and there was nothing you could do. And there was no salvaging the recording after that. Like, you know what I mean? Like the recording sucks because the drums suck.
Yeah.
And so for you, like, obviously you can play, but are there things that you do to try to make sure that it's like, there's a way that you play, but you also kind of have a sound. I mean, is there anything that you try to, convey to the music in terms of your sound?
Oh, well, on stages, there tends to not be washing machines and dryers, so it's normally fine when you're playing a gig.
I don't know. You guys have played some small rooms too, I'm sure. I mean, you might have some washers and dryers on stage every once in a while. Don't discount that.
No, sometimes if like the tuned weird, I'll just whip out a drum key and just fix it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I use my own cymbals everywhere. I use my own snare everywhere, and I use my own kick pedal everywhere. So that's like they're the breakables. They're like
big part.
The like what proper sounds me. But I think my kit sounds pretty nice too. I really love headliners. I can bring my own kit. It's so nice.
Well, that's what I imagine. I mean, that, because you're used to it, you know how to play it, you know how to hit it. And so, not being a drummer, I don't fully appreciate how different it is to have to go sit on the house kit, but I know it happens all the time because drums are such a pain in the butt to lug in and lug out that, you don't always get the luxury of having your own kit. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's in-house kits that they're normally fine, unless like it's the weird ones where like the toms are 2 miles apart and they're like everything's just strange. Or the really broken ones as well, like the ones that have been chucked down a flight of stairs and like everything falls apart. They really get on my nerves, But they're normally sound, they're normally fine.
And Will, what do you use? What makes your sound?
So I'm kind of like the opposite of Luke. I've got really like twangy sounding guitars. I've got a Rickenbacker 360, so it's kind of like Harry's bass, but the guitar version. And I don't get a very thick sound out of that. I get quite a I like trashy sounding rhythm guitars. I let Luke do all the fat and heavy work basically, and I've only got like 3 or 4 pedals on my board because I don't need a lot of effects. I don't need much more than that, and I really hate having to juggle like my pedals because most of the time I'm singing as well. I really hate the idea of juggling my pedals, so all I've got is like a tuner, 2 distortions and a reverb, and that's pretty much it.
And you're using like the distortion is you're not using amp distortion, you're using the pedals.
Yeah, I've got a clean tone, so I can kind of go between that reverb, clean tone, to then whatever distortion I'm using.
So you guys are progressing, I think, pretty rapidly. I mean, one of the things that I heard when I listened to you guys is it sounds like something that I think should already be a lot bigger than you guys are, and you guys have already made some really good, leaps. What's next for you guys in terms of like, whether it be, finding like the right record company, the right promotion agency? I mean, the right, what are you guys looking for next to kind of take you to that next level?
It's a lot of things. Like, again, it's really hard to say. It's not, I mean, in terms of like label and stuff, I don't think it's that, because we have like a really great team behind us, and they all work really hard. So I don't think it's anything to do really with our label. We get along with all them. We like them a lot. I think it's more to do with like just finding the right, having your moment sort of thing. Like nowadays, it's so hard to just have that one like Benson Boone. He had one moment and that's it. He's the biggest guy like in pop. We've just not had really that moment where people have gone, "Oh my god, newest, biggest." Definitely people who support us massively, and they go, "Yeah, next big band." However, we're not like bands in some other bands in the local area where people seem to just absolutely fanaticize over them and will go to any gig that they put on. And unfortunately, we're hoping to have one of those moments where we pick a lot more fans in a shorter space of time. But it's just difficult. It's hard work and it's consistency, and there's not really a magic. Like there's no real way of doing these things or like predicting how it happens. It's just one of those things where if you put in the hard work, eventually you're likely to get lucky and get those fans and that audience. But there's always that possibility that you might not. It's just say nowadays, really. just really difficult as a band in that sense.
I think it's always been difficult, and you're right. There's like, you can be talented, and obviously you guys are, and you write great music, but you still need the right people to hear it for you guys to get to that next level, and it's never a given. Like no matter what, especially in the kind of music that you guys do, right? I mean, it's not like you guys aren't pop. It's not it's not like this kind of like raw, rough sound is the most popular music out there right now. It's a lot of the more the R&B rap type of stuff is what's really popular. So it is definitely harder. But I think you guys do have that sound that could break through. I think also, I don't know if you guys have explored anything with TV, and I don't even know how to do that, to be honest with you. But some of your songs sound like they'd be really good in a soundtrack. Like the one we started off with, "Misunderstands." I mean, that could be like that could easily be on like a soundtrack of a TV show or a movie or something like that. That'd be awesome. And so, have you guys explored any of that?
It's the left, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to give us loads of money and take it,
Yeah,
we're more than happy to oblige with that.
We'll see if we can
sync deals and stuff. I don't know. It's not something we've like majorly explored. Obviously, it'd be a really cool thing to have that, and maybe that would help us find like that moment that like Harry mentioned earlier. Something like everyone's just starts hearing a song on like a TV show or an advert or something like that.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to become one of those bands that becomes a one-hit wonder because of it's that one song off, the advert on TV.
Yeah.
For the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It could be a curse as well to blow up quickly and not kind of grow into that listenership, so to speak, or have them kind of follow you organically. Last question for you guys. I know that you mentioned in an earlier or in another place, Will, that you guys work really hard. It's not a blue collar job. You said something like that, but you still treat it like it's hard work. And I think that's important. I think it is really hard work what you guys do. And can you talk a little bit about how you approach your days? Because I think that when you're doing this as as your presumed careers right now, I mean, you're still young, but as your careers, you do have to treat it like it's a real thing. You can't just wake up at well, you can probably still wake up at noon. That doesn't matter. But you gotta work pretty hard to get your stuff out there and to craft and to work on your craft. What do you guys do on a daily basis for that?
Well, there's no mistake to be made. It's definitely a million times easier than having to work any like real job.
Yeah,
because you're just chilling with like your mates, like playing instruments and shouting down a microphone. But at the same time, it's also not really like, it's not a role which you can like clock out of as well. There's always something to be done, and there's always a lot of like deadlines to be met. You've got to write, you've got to write a certain number of songs by a certain number of time, or hey, Luke, you forgot to post a social media post. You need to do that right now. There's always something like that going on. So by no means is it like, it's by no means a blue collar job. Yeah. But at the same time, you also can't clock out of it. You kind of have to always be on it. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because we all love it so much that it doesn't feel like hard work. Well, it does feel like hard work, but at the same time, it's also in a way just relaxing with your mates.
Yeah, I mean, when you guys, you guys have toured a little bit, but I think as you start to like make your area wider and wider, it does become hard. I mean, it is hard work. It's not, and I agree, it's not a blue collar job. I'm not, equating it to going into the mines or something like that and digging coal, but it's not like you're not just sitting at home on your couch playing Nintendo either. You're out there. It is hard work, and it can be frustrating, especially when things don't go the way that you want it to. And so it's like any other job in some respect. If you don't take it kind of seriously, you're not going to do as well as if you're like actually putting a lot of effort in there. So
you do have to take it very seriously, because if you clock out once, then everyone will forget about you.
Or if you put on a bad show because you didn't feel like doing it that day,
yeah.
you don't. Who's in the audience? That could be your chance. That could be the chance that Harry was just talking about. Like that could be your. If you had performed well instead of mailing it in, maybe you would have gotten somewhere. You just don't know. All right, I said last question, and every single interview I've done, I've lied about the last question. This is the last question. What do you guys think you'd do if you weren't musicians?
Professional pub goer with Harry. Me and Harry would be professional pub goers.
You're still too young to be professional pub goer. You have a lot to learn on pub going. I mean, you have a lot. You have a lot to learn before you can call yourself a professional pub goer. I don't care where you're from.
Yeah, beer reviews.
Big money in that. Good career.
I'd probably sleep all day. That's probably what my job would be.
Your parents would kick you out so fast. I mean, if your parents were doing like me, I'd be
wouldn't. They would
not. They want him to stay there forever. Seriously.
That's awesome, guys. Thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate your time. I know that you guys have done quite the circuit over the past few months here, and I appreciate you taking an hour out to talk to me. And I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. It was really good.
Swallow and transcend in your head. Coolest cut your eyes, but you'll never tell them apart. Girls on the West End, better dead. Loneliness will shame you like the hollow man that you are. The bed bomb contorted. Is it dead? Are you dead? Emptiness will find you in museums made for the eyes. Digital warhead. Up ahead, infrared. Missiles will repulse you like the hollow man that you are.
And that was the Florentenes. You are listening to The Gun right now, which is off of their latest EP called Homegrown. And the Florentenes, I think they're the real deal. This is a band that has great hooks, great energy, and the personality that makes you want them to succeed. So they're still really early in their journey. If you have a chance, go see them. Listen to their music on Spotify or wherever you get your music. And I think you might be hearing a lot from them in the future. Until next time, I'm Jan Perillo, and this is The Underknown.